Is GPT-3 the beginning of the real AGI, or the artificial general intelligence? Why I say this is how we are actually adding emotions to the algorithms is what really is interesting, is going to be interesting. And if GPT-3 can sort of, you know, command all that already, then, is that really close to the AGI?
It depends who you ask, actually. There's a variety of opinions. Look, if you ask the current CEO of OpenAI, who are responsible for this new generation of artificial intelligence called GPT-3, he says that it's our expectations are exaggerated, that perhaps we believe it's more capable than it is. There's an important concept within the AI world. We call it the Turing Test, after one of the pioneers of computation, Alan Turing. And the Turing Test, a lot of people know it. Maybe your listeners are smarter than most listeners. It's if you are talking to another entity that you can't see. So in another room, there could be a computer or a person, and you have a dialogue with that entity. If you can't tell whether it's a computer or a human, we have said to have passed the Turing test, right? So it could be that when you actually type a message on your side of the wall, let's say, and you say, yeah, how do you feel today? And the response is such that you look at it and you say, I can't tell if that's a computer or a person. We've said to have passed the Turing test. We haven't got there yet. We don't have a repeatable positive Turing experience, although the expectation is we will get there. And so the question then is asked, if you as a human think you're talking to another sentient thing, does it matter if it's a human or a robot or a computer, right? We get into now a space of thinking about this question that is more philosophical than it is computer science or engineering. What is consciousness? What is sentience? And so to broaden a little bit, you ask about emotion. Well, we assume that emotion is a component of sentience, a consciousness, an awareness of itself. And again, if the computer demonstrates it in a convincing way, are we as humans in a position to say, well, that's not sentience, that's not consciousness, it's artificial, it's fake, it doesn't exist in the same way that the human experience does. I think what we need to do is fully understand what it means to be conscious and sentient as a human being. And I don't think we yet have determined what that is and how, and really come to really strong conclusions. That's an area of continued remarkable research and science. And so getting back to the question of GPT-3. So what you have is a fantastic new, very complex algorithm, I guess, or set of algorithms that takes the content of the world, a lot of the online content, and shapes it in a way that appears to pass the Turing test. So I might have an interaction with a GPT-3, a dialogue or chatbot, and I might say something like, I need to book a ticket to fly from San Francisco to Dallas. And the GPT-3 comes back and says, well, it's good to talk to you today. I have some options for you. I'd like to suggest these airlines at these times. Do any of these look good to you? And you might say, wow, it's so fantastically human the way it's doing this. But that's the power of this. It gives the impression that it is thinking, it understands logic, but it is, and I don't mean to be unfair to people who study this and work in AI, it is kind of a fancy trick. It is a little bit of sort of, a magician who makes something appear to be something it's not. And AI today is very much kind of a magic trick, right? Where there isn't a thinking, pondering, conscious computer behind the screen. It is using mathematics and data to be able to give what appear to be remarkably good answers. And so I think the conclusion of my answer to this question is GPT-3 is not sentience. It is not emotional AI. It is a fantastic, powerful, impressive solution in so many ways. It mimics human text and human interaction in a remarkable way, better than we've seen in the past. But it is by no means anything close to AGI or a conscious computer.
But is it even the beginning of AGI? I mean, what I mean is that I have done a few podcasts wherein the AGI experts talk about cognitive architectures to be needed in order to build AGI. So does GPT-3, resemble something of that? Or do you think, it's still quite far from AGI?
Well, take the last part of your question first. I do think we are still far away from viable AGI. I don't think that's imminent. I don't, timelines are always interesting in tech. People ask me all the time, for example, when will most cars drive themselves? When will we make the transition from, driving cars ourselves to almost all self-driving cars? It's a hard question to answer. I know it's coming, but it's hard to say, is it in the next 10 years or next 30 years, And look, the history of the last 20 to 30 years is things happen faster than we think, and so we probably should err on things being a little bit faster than we anticipate, that we might get surprised. What is remarkable about any research and any developments in the AI space is every wave of new innovation accelerates the previous waves. So you really have the scientific theory and practice. Past knowledge, you build on it, improves the knowledge, you move a topic forward. But because we're talking about algorithms here, and we're baking in more storage, more data, more high-performing processors, it's always getting not just a little bit better, but rapidly better. So GPT-3 feels like one of those very important stepping stones on our journey towards AGI. Again, we don't know if it's one of the first stepping stones or one of the middle ones, or are we towards the time when the switch is about to be flipped and things get really strange. There's a very high degree of uncertainty there. What makes GPT-3 distinctive and successful is just the sheer scale of data that it taps in to make its magic happen, right? It's the exceptional scale of the ways in which it can consume and process on a level, a multitude, many times greater than any previous AI solution that uses data. And of course, we're calling it GPT-3. It's like the third version. You can imagine that GPT-3.4 and GPT-3.5, each of them will be vastly superior than previous versions and use even more data and get even give the appearance of greater smartness. I'll be the first to admit that I can't go very much deeper than that, given a lighter background than maybe some of your other guests in the computer science behind this. Suffice to say that I don't know that I can quantitatively say GPT-3 gets us closer to sentience or aware or cognitive intelligence in a computing system. All I can say is it's improving the game. It's moving the needle forward. It's giving the appearance and presenting solutions in a completely new and remarkable way that one has to conclude these are steps in a direction that is getting us closer to something eventually that will look like AGI.